to see Barack Obama back in Afghanistan. I mean, it surprised me a lot. I'm going to start with a prayer, and then we'll just sort of dive in. And the prayer I'm going to use is one of, it's a beautiful prayer. It's by Archbishop Romero, and it was sent to me by one of your colleagues, one of our colleagues, and then we'll just sort of dive in. So, it helps now and then to step back and take a long view. The kingdom is not only beyond our efforts, it's even beyond our vision. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. Nothing we do is complete, which is a way of saying that the kingdom always lies beyond us. No statement says all that could be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. No set of goals and objectives includes everything. This is what we are about. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water the seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces far beyond our capabilities. We do not do everything, and there's a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something, and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it's a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that's the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future that is not our own. Prayer was written by Archbishop Oscar Romero, a Jesuit, who not just lived that prayer, but gave his life in the spirit of that prayer. And I just want to say one thing by way of transition into some of my reflections this morning about my own circumstances, and that as of August 1st, I'll no longer serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs, and that's the mission precedes and succeeds me and all of us. Our conversations this morning, conversations that we've had all along, are about things that are sort of fundamental and foundational to each of us and our work, and all of us share in that in some way, as Archbishop Romero says, and it's a privilege to do it and to be able to do it while we can, and it's a precious gift. So if there's one thing to coming from me to you at this point in time, it's about the mission, and it's about the students, and it's about the good work that we have done, that we are doing, and that we will do. It's about the strategic plan that we don't know how it will unfold, but we've laid the ground for really important work. So, as Archbishop Romero says, that's what sets us free. That we're not the master builder, but we're workers in his vineyard. And it's been, I've really been so pleased by these conversations that have happened each Wednesday every month. I know people get frustrated with the surveys and the initiatives that come out of the university, but this one came out of ND Voice, believe it or not, where we give our feedback as to how we feel about the work that we do. And from that, we were planning with the senior staff, and we said that one of the goals of the division this year was to facilitate conversations about our mission and about how Holy Cross in particularly informs the mission of student affairs. And when we did it, we wanted to make it something that we provided the division an opportunity to enrich themselves, or be enriched by it, not so much just by the content of presentations, but by the opportunity to take something back to their work or integrate something in their life. And as I think over the course of the year, the presentations that we've had, we started off with Father Drew Gowrich talking about the charisms of the Congregation of Holy Cross. And then Father Jim King and Terry Fitzgibbons partnered up together, and Jim talked about our structures as an international congregation and a little bit about our history. And Terry talked about what it's like to be a lay minister with the Congregation of Holy Cross, and doing it in both an international but also in a familiar setting, doing it here at Notre Dame. Pat Reedy, the seminarian, gave a great talk on Moreau. Who is he, and what's his story, and what's that have to do with our history? Two of our rectors, Layla Karst and Father Bob Lockbury, got together and they talked about the charisms of community and community building in the ministry of presence. Tammy Schmitz and Sister Veronique and Ed Obermiller talked about the charism of chastity. Zeal. Where did that come from? Talking about how it is that we educate with passion. And Sue Dunn and Denise Lyons, Sekou is coming up, the principles of good practice. Steve LaCroix gave us a fantastic talk on St. Andre Bessette and the charism of hospitality. And then Brad Metz, most recently, talked about our constitutions and tried to give us some sort of insight into them. And I really want to thank all of you who have been part of these discussions, and this is just another one of those discussions to kind of wrap it up and sort of send us off into the summer. And I want to thank my colleagues, especially Sister Sue and Matt, for sort of organizing this and moving it along. I found it to be, every time I've come, I've been inspired by, both by the presenters, but something that they've had to say. And what I'd like to say by way of summary is to talk about the mission and Holy Cross, and information, and formation, and transformation in the Holy Cross tradition. And I'm going to sort of turn and focus around what I think is so much at the heart of our work in student affairs at Notre Dame, but it really comes out of the work of the Congregation of Holy Cross. And that's our motto: the cross is our hope. It is a strange thing indeed to say that the instrument of torture, which God's Son was crucified, is our hope. What an odd thing that it is. And the symbol of the Congregation of Holy Cross is cross and anchors. Anchors being a symbol of hope, and cross, obviously, of our Christian faith. I was at the gas station the other day, and I was wearing this medallion. David Tyson calls it our bling. But what does that mean? Are you in the Navy? Is a common question. But it just gave me a chance to stop and talk just a little bit about cross and hope. And yes, the person who is working at the convenience mart, he's not one of our students, but there's something about that resonated with him. It was great to be able to talk about, just for a moment, in a transactional moment, about his faith in what is probably normally And it's strange as well to call the cross our hope, especially in sort of our contemporary time. These are hard times that we live in, and you've heard me say, and you've heard us reflect so much on the question, who are our students? And our students are many, many things. Objectively, they are very bright, very experienced and worldly. But if we go a little bit deeper, one of the things that I believe that we acknowledge and that we know is that our students are also human, that they are under an enormous amount of pressure, most of it self-applied, but much of it, sort of existential angst. And because we work so closely with the students, we experience those crosses with our students. And it's a culture where if you watch the sort of tabloid, if that's any sort of barometer of what's happening in the world, where those kinds of things, the brokenness of people, it's usually pointed out in the strangest ways. I mean, first we see how beautiful people are, or how beautiful the beautiful people are, and then subsequently we'll sort of find that they're flawed, that they got drunk and they went on a rant, right? And they're broken, and it's sort of this sort of look at them. One moment they're heroes and they're perfect, and the next moment we find that they're broken, and we sort of chuckle at that and laugh about that. And there's something different about the way that we are approaching brokenness in the lives of our students and in our own lives that is deeply important, and I think really impacts our ministry. So last night when I was walking out of the dormitory, so much is going on. But I got a call from Brian, and we have 3 students last night that are all in sort of hospitalization situations, and some of you were directly involved in those things. But we're just going into finals. We're finishing up the end of the year, and these are world beaters. These young people, they're amazing. Right? If they could only see the good that they are, and yet something is broken. And so, where were Brian and Heather last night? Well, trying to find lost students and at the hospital with them. And boy, it's like the crosses are only hope. It seems like the cross and people's crosses are just pulling us apart. There's not enough time and energy. The wounds are too many. And one of the things that I think before we sort of get into why the cross is our hope and why that's a hopeful statement is just a good deconstruction of culture. And you are experts in culture because you live among it in the way that you interface with our students. And to use an old image that I've used before, is sort of an overall comment on our culture, is to go back to the movie. What's the Tom Cruise movie where he's the pilot? Top Gun. Thank you. Yeah. Right. And so you've heard me tell the story before, but there's the scene in that movie where Tom Cruise, comes, a broken man, right, comes back into the woman that he thinks that he loves, but he's not really sure. But he's at this moment he thinks that he's loved, and he walks in and women's group, and he says to the woman in the presence of her friends, "Do you complete me?" Oh, Jerry. What would I say?
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, but Tom.
Yeah.
Jerry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've got all my movies mixed up. You got it. It is Jerry.
Ask any of them.
So anyway, where are you complete me? Are you with me? Are you complete me? Everybody in the theater goes, isn't that beautiful, and that's wonderful, right? And it just resonates with us. It's like, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if somebody said that about me, right? Wouldn't it be great if I felt that way about somebody else? And it's a lie. hardship, not the presence of a child, not the reaching of a goal or milestone is nothing completes us. And I think one of the challenges of our time is that we are led to believe that there will be something that completes us. Right? If we can just get to that milestone, if we could just get to that program, or we could just get that attendance at the program, or we hit the 100% mark of all of our students being sort of employed or committed after they graduate, well then we would feel complete. But it's elusive. We get there and we realize that nothing completes us. And it is the truth that it is only God who brings completeness to us. No thing. Our work among our students and I would say our ministry too is to our colleagues as well, is that we stand as testament to this truth that nothing in this world completes us. When you are with a sick or a broken or a confused or just a lost student or colleague, there's nothing that you can do to take that away from them. It's impossible. And in fact, sometimes that pain or that anger, that's sacred. If you try to take it from somebody, they'll resist your sort of taking it and pulling it away from them. This is their cross. How is there hope in that experience of being incomplete? And why would we proclaim that this is our great hope? It's the paradox of our work and our mission and our ministry as educators in the faith, as part of the Holy Cross institution. So I'll turn to the constitutions and just say, well, what do they have to say about the cross being our hope? To struggle for justice and meet only stubbornness, to rally those who have despaired, to stand by the side of misery we cannot relieve, to preach the Lord to those who have little faith or do not wish to hear of him, our ministry will hint to us of Jesus' suffering for us. To spend our lives and to be spent for the needs of our neighbors, to be available and cheerful as a friend, and to give witness while others hesitate, to stand by duty when it has become all burden and no delight. These can draw us near Calvary. The response is this, is that Jesus entered into the pain and death that sin inflicts. He accepted the torment, but gave us joy in return. We whom he has sent to minister amid the same pain must know that we too shall find the cross and the hope that it promises. The face of every human being who suffers is for us the face of Jesus, who mounted the cross to take the sting out of death. Ours must be the same cross and the same hope. Observationally, if I was to say if there is something about our work in the Division of Student Affairs that really embodies the charism and the mission of the Congregation of Holy Cross, it is that. Right? It is that you as colleagues, as friends, as ministers, and as professionals enter into the sacred places of students' lives. And that includes their brokenness and their suffering. And you too, likewise, enter into the brokenness and the suffering of our colleagues. We attempt to be that witness of hope for one another. That, observationally to me, is how the mission of Holy Cross is lived out in the lives lives of our students and the lives of our colleagues. And it's not the kind of place where the faint of heart should go. It's a very difficult place to be. And often we recognize that we're limited. Our tools that we have to fix and repair are limited. But good student development theory would suggest that we're not there to fix them necessarily. Certainly to be present to and to mentor and to walk with. So it's actually the presence of mind in the faith to not try to go in and fix or bandage over a student's or a colleague's wounds that make us unique in our approach to work and our approach to ministry. The paradox is that we don't fix, that we don't complete, that we don't provide simple answers, and that we don't run away, that we simply stand together with them, provide this, continue dialogue, being faithful not to a certain outcome, but trusting in the one who is outside of us or inside of us, trusting in God. That God will use us and in a way that is helpful in bringing health and healing to one another's lives. The theme about the cross being our hope that is sort of most fertile in my life is that of reconciliation. Since I've been ordained and while I was a seminarian, this is really probably the theme that most resonates with me. In part because the sacrament of reconciliation is an important part of my life as a young man, and even to this day, it's a place where I really encounter the real presence of God. So both as somebody who goes to confession, but somebody who celebrates it with others, there's something powerful. You actually get to be in the presence, to watch the completion or the transition of a transformation of somebody. And you need not be a priest and a sacramental minister to recognize that. Whenever you are a witness or part of a reconciliation, you see how that is such a powerful turning moment in people's lives. And it's the one thing I would suggest that as we think about how it is that we embody the charisms of Holy Cross, how important it is for us to be aware of the reconciliation that needs to take place within students' lives, right? And we're very keen on what their sort of common stumbling blocks are. You know, the hookup culture. Alcohol has a large part to play with it. Ignorance and hatred that is communicated in the ways of sort of lashing out at people who are different from us. These are hurt and wounded people, and we see the patterns of these things. But if we are to be educators in the faith, and we are to be the kind of people who stand at the foot of the cross and don't flee away, that reconciliation in our own lives is one of the most important tasks that we undertake. Our physical and our emotional health is absolutely critical for us to be able to function as ministers, but our spiritual health, that too has to be tended to. And reconciliation is really hard work, very hard work. And it's hardest where it's closest to us. I think of my own family, two brothers, two sisters, a mom and a dad. Gosh, you know, I had the best words on reconciliation, but to try to apply it to my own life, my own family, is tough stuff. And doing it with colleagues, hard stuff. So I just wanted to sort of tease you a little bit and help you to think about this call to reconciliation as part of being witness to the cross and the transformation that comes through it, through God's love and God's forgiveness. And I'm just going to turn to a book that has been very powerful in my life, and it's called Bound to Forgive, and it's written by Marty Janko, who's a priest, and he was a priest who went to Lebanon with Catholic Relief Services. It was in the 1970s, and the Catholic Relief Services is where Carolyn Wu now works. She is head of that global agency, this extraordinary agency. But he went to Lebanon to help out, and then while he was there, he was kidnapped, and he was held for it was 560 days in Lebanon, because they thought he was a spy, a CIA spy. And so I'm just going to read some parts from his reflection on that experience, and you got to ask yourself, well, how could he come? How does he take this cross experience for himself, and how does he transform it? So, first, as it says, CRS went to Lebanon in 1976, basically as a relief agency to supply food, clothing, and medicine to the people. What developed was an extensive program of reconstructing private institutions such as schools, hospitals, orphanages, homes for the elderly, and the like. So, he feels called to go and to be a part of the rebuilding, to bring hope to people of Lebanon, Christian and non-Christian alike. And then he's kidnapped, and just to give you one little snippet of, because it has a lot of texture to it, about his kidnapping. So he'd been taken captive. It said, a voice said to stand up, put your arms at your sides, and your ankles and legs as close as you can get them. Then they wound white packing tape around my ankles, legs, and torso, shoulders, and neck. When they came to my head, they said, open your mouth, stuffed a piece of cloth inside, and taped my mouth shut. They wound the tape around my head. My whole body was wrapped with only my nostrils left for breathing. Then they slid me under the bed of a truck into a space where tires are usually stored. I heard the metal door close, but didn't know where they had put me. I thought they had wrapped my body for burial and put me in a hearse. I rode in this hot metal box. It was burning, the exhaust fumes so sickening and overpowering that I could hardly breathe. Nor, bound as I was, could I brace myself in any way. The truck hit a bump so hard that I flew up and hit my nose. It bled, and the blood coagulated to my nasal passages, making it even harder to breathe. The truck stopped several times, but the engine kept running. I figured we were stopping at checkpoints, and I hoped maybe that the guards would find me. I was afraid and started to pray. So he's taken captive and treated extremely poorly by his captors. One day, a guard named Saeed told me to open my mouth. What are those silver things in your mouth, he demanded, and he looked in. Those are fillings for cavities. Those are not fillings, those are transmitters. And you're a CIA spy, and we'll give you half an hour to take them out. What could I do? The darkness of my closet of anxiety became unbearable, and I prayed in anguish. Oh God, please don't let them be serious. Talks about how over time, this relationship of hatred with, especially the guards who were responsible for him, but how the little things became so important to him. And one of them he talked about was his clothes. It just became very important to him that the only thing that he had were the clothes that he was kidnapped in, and he wanted to hang on to them either until he died or until he was liberated. He said, then I experienced a transforming moment. I'd been saving a little button that had come off my coat the morning I was kidnapped. It was very important to me, and I would take it from prison to prison. If I misplaced it, I would search for my button. One day, in this madness, I said to God, oh God, you can have the button. And I threw it all away. Cling to nothing material became my motto. Rely on and trust in the Lord. We had many conversations with the guards. We discussed religion, politics, and the need to love and be loved. This is more than a year into the experience, because the human relationship, though it was cruel, was starting to form between him and his We each had one guard we preferred over the other, and I believe they felt the same about us. The guards would even pick up on our emotional state, be it boredom, anger, or sadness. They would find my silence annoying. A silent, passive, nonviolent response would irritate them. I really believe they wanted to be my friends. Strangely, they wanted approval for their acts of kindness as well as their acts of cruelty. One day, Abu Ali asked me, "Abuna, teach me what Jesus has to say about love." Through our conversation, a mutual realization of each other's dreams was gradually transforming two enemies into brothers. The cruelty is really unimaginable, and then he's coming to just before his release. And many times what they did is they psychologically, they toyed with people. They'd tell them to get up, they'd put clothes on and say that they were going home, only to tell them they weren't. That it was just another sort of torture. So, 564 days after my kidnapping, in the last of my many prisons, I'm standing blindfolded in front of an elevator, dressed to go home. Two guards, Abu Ali and Mahmoud, stand behind me in an adjacent room where my brothers, hostages who were not going home. Abu Ali says, "Here, Abuna," and I feel him place something in my hand which I recognize immediately to be a small cross. How strange. On the morning of my kidnapping, I wore a treasured silver chain and a cross that a brother Servite had given me on my 25th anniversary as a priest. One of my kidnappers had taken it from me. From the first to the last of my captivity, I had no cross. It was as if God had said, "I'm going to give you a cross instead of the one you wear." This book of his, saying how he's bound to forgive, is his story of people that he did hate, and had every right and every reason to hate them. But he talked about, through this, how important this reconciliation was to him as a person, not as a priest, but just as a person. And as I think about our work in student life, students among students, and us among ourselves, how important this reconciliation is in our own lives. I often say that I can't give what I do not have. And if I'm not praying with regularity, I can feel it in my preaching. I can feel it in my teaching. I can feel it in my work. If the cross is our only hope, strange as it is, what it does is it invites us to go, borrow a phrase from Star Trek, where no one has gone before. To go not just to those places on foreign studies or to the Center for the Homeless or across campus, but to go deep with our colleagues and with our students. It literally gives us not just permission to go to those sacred places, but it gives us a directive to go to those broken places in people's lives, to not be afraid of being in those sacred places, not to muck around, not to go beyond our professional capability, right? Because there are things that are beyond our abilities. Thankfully, that's why we have colleagues. That's why we have colleagues that tend to all parts of our students who specialize. But this is where a culture of you complete me does not want to go. Right? We tend to run from those kinds of pain rather than run towards them. And if you think about the history of the Congregation of Holy Cross, coming to Indiana, Father Soren and the six brothers, this was not, it wasn't air conditioned when he arrived. There was no promise. Several years after he was here, Father Soren was told by Father Moreau that he was to lead a group to Bangladesh. And being a good Holy Cross priest, he said, "No, I'm not going." eventually he came to the answer, yes, I'll go to Bangladesh. The frontier was a place of not just unknown, but there was a lot of suffering. But the suffering that they recognized was not just the physical suffering, but sort of a spiritual suffering. They didn't have anybody to care for their spiritual needs. What suffering that is. In Bangladesh, we went, we died, we failed. So what they do, they sent us back again. Right? The best school in all of Bangladesh, in a country that is only 2% Christian, 0.2% Catholic, is called Holy Cross School in the nation's capital. We went to a place that suffered, and we didn't just go as tourists. We went as missionaries to be with the people, to meet them in their need wherever they were. One of the reasons that the community of Holy Cross has such credibility in Uganda and Chile, both, is that when those countries were going through revolution, Uganda, Idi Amin, Holy Cross didn't leave. The expatriates stayed in Uganda. Who do you think they trust in Uganda now? The people who entered into their cross with them. Chile, same thing. Terrible years of Pinochet. Father Warner, our Superior General, was there at that time, and there are people on campus who were there at that time. Country totally split. Socialists and capitalists, rich and poor. Holy Cross did not leave. They entered into that cross. It's not morbid. It's not a suicide mission, but it's our mission. Why? Because we come as people with hope to bring. We come not as visitors, but as brothers and sisters. And the important work for us as educators of the faith in the Holy Cross tradition, right, is to be the kind of educator who is not data dumping, right, not fixing, not creating a program that sort of makes everything just right, but helps people to enter into the deepest relationship of their lives. That's the relationship with God. How do they get there? Step by step. We model that kind of relationship with one another. And I'll finish up with one last little story. My sister-in-law and brother and nephew went to Zambia last summer. My sister-in-law teaches nursing for Gonzaga University in Spokane, and they took a group of nurses and sort of a leadership development country, students for leadership development program for, I think it was 8 weeks in Zambia. And, so there were two groups. One was sort of a medical group, and the other was a group of education students who were working on sort of education things. And they showed up their first morning in Zambezi, as this program is an annual program. And there's a man waiting on the porch the first morning after they arrived. So they've been traveling for a couple of days. And he keeps yelling, "The pupil is here! The pupil is here!" And the students weren't ready to sort of start school that day, but this person has been waiting 9 months for the Gonzaga students to come back, right? So they just thought he was one of those crazy guys who was hanging around, and then the next morning he comes back again. He says, "The pupil is here! The pupil is here!" Right, and they start their programs, and he's going through this. But the thing about the pupil is that he's almost 80 years old, and he's blind, and he walked 7 kilometers to get to this place, right? And because he was visually impaired, typing on the keyboard, they had some keyboard, was hard for him. Just the alphabets and basics, and so one of the students made a huge sort of poster-sized keyboard, so to help him sort of get to it. My sister-in-law came in at the end of the day, and he was in the class, and she said, Christopher, isn't it frustrating for you sometimes trying to learn if you can't see? And his response to her was something to the fact that I just want to be around people who learn. Right? I crave to learn. The cross, our hope, whether we have hope to bring, or whether we have hope to receive. Sometimes we think that we are coming as minister, as professional, as person who is going to be bear witness to the cross. But as often as not, it's the people who bear the cross that bear witness to us. If the cross is our only hope, we are given license to go places that are sacred in people's lives. And observationally, I would say that that is true. That is what is a hallmark of the way that we had decided to staff and program at the University of Notre Dame, and the University of Portland, and King's College, and Stonehill, and our other high schools as well, is that this place, we enter into deep relationships with our students and with one another in ways that acknowledge the fullness of their existence, imperfect as it is, but most importantly in ways that are always a testament to the hope, right? That the cross is not the end of the story. The cross is most often the vessel by which we are shaped. It informs our experience, right? We know the pattern, and the cross is what transforms us as individuals, as students, as colleagues, and as a community. So those are my thoughts about how is it, what is it that's unique about us and this. We've had a lot of different conversations over the course of the last year. My hope is that we'll continue to have them. And one of them that we're going to continue to have is that there's going to be a reading group this summer, which I think is a nice way to continue this. And the group is going to be reading a book on Basil Moreau and his impact on the story of Holy Cross. And you'll have an opportunity to do it, but this wouldn't be my first summer, right? But if I was reading with others and was going to promote some kind of fruitful conversation about the mystery of the work that we do, I pick it up. Not out of embarrassment, that I don't want to be the one, but I pick it up as something that's this continues. So once again, I want to thank you for your presence here this morning, and a lot of these are familiar faces who are here on many of these mornings. We're going to send out something that asks to give people to give feedback on what their experience was. I think this is a very good start. There are probably other things that we can do, and so just be generous and honest in providing that kind of feedback for one another. So we have a few moments. We're just about out of time for some questions if people want. But if not, we can do some coffee.